Hi Yul, I'm very sorry I'm not in Bangkok commemorating John. You and John have been friends for more than 25 years. John was a journalist right to the end of his life, and I always say he was the high priest of journalism. He was very disciplined on the facts he collected. He checked and rechecked all the facts he collected before he wrote them up. If he had any doubts, he did not publish them. He was a trustworthy journalist. When people said, protect my identity, he did. He was fair in his judgment in stories. If he was uncomfortable, he would talk to a lot of people to see what the other points of view are. My greatest respect to him was not just because he was a friend, he was a great journalist. I had nearly 3 to 4 conversations monthly with him. That's like once a week. I really miss him. I really miss the conversations with him. And it ranged from government regulations to health data to politics. It was him in March 2023 who said to me, "You watch, Prabowo Subianto will be the next president. He's the most organized and most ready to be president." However, he's not around to write that story, and I hope the commemoration in Bangkok today goes well. Thank you.
I first met John in the early 1990s when he and Yuli moved to Jakarta, and he occupied a Far Eastern Economic Review office in the same building as my company was located. Very quickly, we became friends, sharing interests in diverse topics ranging from Indonesian society and politics to scotch and wine. He and Yuli would host these wonderful barbecue dinners, boasting an ample supply of appropriate liquids and a large group of interesting guests from a wide variety of backgrounds. Many of us are going to be sharing anecdotes and memories of John. I'll contribute just one, but it's one with which I have a unique relationship. John's daily exercise activity focused on his Concept 2 rowing machine. And he had a rowing machine which broke. And the problem at the time, and perhaps still to this day, is that it's not easy to get these machines in Indonesia, and certainly it was not easy to get them into Indonesia. I, just by coincidence, had a machine which I had never used. It sat in my guest room, and I made no use of it. When John's machine broke, I was able to give him mine, and he made ample use of it. In fact, far better use of it than I ever could have made. And I'm happy to say that I contributed to John's exercise, which is something quite important to him. Anyway, I'm sure many people in Jakarta, and no doubt elsewhere, now sense a void in John's absence. No one else ever calls me just to shoot the breeze the way John used to. And we would see each other at least once a month, perhaps more frequently. And every time it was exciting, interesting, and engaging to speak with him. My feelings are best expressed in Robert Burns' poem, Epitaph to My Own Friend. An honest man lies at rest, as ere God with his image blessed. The friend of man, the friend of truth, the friend of age and guide of youth. Few hearts like his with virtue warmed, few heads with knowledge so informed. If there's another world, he lives in bliss. If there is none, he made the best of this.
By the time I arrived at the Far Eastern Economic Review, John McBeth was already a legend, known in many capitals around Southeast Asia. When I started working for the cultural section, I edited John's brilliant pieces on the student movement in South Korea that led to the opening up of South Korea, and he did an amazing job covering that story. And then he went on to the stellar career we all know that he had in Indonesia. And that's where I got to know him personally as well as professionally. I cherish the times I was invited to their home, thanks to Yuli, and I got to know John and Yuli as a brilliant couple together, and both of them separately, and I miss John a lot.
Hi, this is Dan Bowman and Dennis Heffernan in Jakarta. Welcome to all those at the John McBeth Memorial for his 80th birthday. Dennis and I were good friends of John. He was a great man. He was trustworthy. He was able to translate very complex concepts into stories that benefited the public, and we are going to greatly miss him in the future. He was one of a kind, and he was a fine person.
And John, Dan and I both want to mention that you've got a lot of nerve not showing up for your own 80th birthday. And we miss you very much. We miss our nice coffee mornings together, talking about things that mattered, and look forward to seeing more of Yuli and
Yes.
as life goes on. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Enjoy yourselves.
Yuli, this is Dave Fortuna Anwar. I'm terribly sorry that I won't be able to join you in Bangkok to remember John's passing. Hi John, if you're listening out there, I'm truly sorry that you have left us so early. As you know, I followed your writings very, very closely even before we met. When I was doing my research on my thesis for my PhD on Indonesia's foreign policy in ASEAN, your writings in the Far Eastern Economic Review really helped me a lot. You shape the geographic picture and the geopolitical stories about Southeast Asia and Indonesia. And then I used to enjoy meeting you and debating with you when you were in Jakarta. And as you know, you used to call me every so often. And we used to have an argument, and sometimes we disagreed and sometimes we agreed. So you're a fine journalist, and we all miss you. I hope that you have a good time up there.
My name is Mike Island. John and I became friends in early 1980. It's difficult to know what to say about John that hasn't already been said articulately by other people. So I've elected to choose one of his many admirable qualities, focus on that, and give a couple of examples. And that quality is honesty. There never was a man more honest than John McBeth put on the face of this earth. Sometimes people would interpret that honesty as being grumpiness, but I think that's unfair. It's just John being straightforward. Anyone who knew John for any length of time would have seen or been the subject of his honesty. Certainly that was the case with me when he wrote to me. He said, "You have many admirable qualities. I'm just trying to remember them." In recent years, we didn't meet in person very often, but we did carry on a sustained and frequent correspondence on WhatsApp. So I spent some time in the last couple of days going through our WhatsApp conversation and picking out a couple of examples of his honesty. I didn't have to look very far. Many of our exchanges were concerns with the vicissitudes of aging, and this is John on aging. Whoever coined that phrase, the golden years, needs a good kick in the slats. I don't know where the slats are, but I don't think I would want to be kicked there, especially by John. He said, "A nap is now an essential part of my day." A lot of us can sympathize with that. I never heard him say a critical word about his own home country. He's shown an unsparing light, though, on other countries, especially Australia and the U.S. Here are a couple of examples of what he said about the U.S. Probably 80% of Americans couldn't point out New Zealand on a map. I think he's being charitable here. And we had an exchange about the difference in severity of COVID between Asian countries and the U.S. And here's his explanation. "It's your culture of individualism, I'm afraid. Asia is being saved, I believe, by its sense of community." So I pushed back and I said that's not an adequate explanation. There must be something else involved, maybe a genetic factor. John replies, yes, you're right. It's called the dickhead gene. It only takes a leader with the gene to unlock it in the country. I wonder what leader he was talking about. All was not totally negative about America, though, because his idol, his hero, was Clint Eastwood. And here's John talking about a trip to Washington a few years ago. I sat there on the top step of the Lincoln Memorial, and just like Clint in the movie, I turned and said to the president, I wish I'd been there for you, Abe. I could go on, but I've already exceeded my allotted time, I fear, and like everyone who knew John, I'll miss him terribly. Like everyone who knew John, I wish Yulie and the whole family all the best going forward and basking in the memories, happy memories of this very colorful and honest and lovely man.
Hello everybody, Lynn Newman here. I gather most of you probably know me one way or another, regardless of whether you like me or not. But anyway, as it happens, on the occasion of this memorial for John, I'm in Korea at the Incheon Airport in one of those hideous transit box hotels run by the Ibis people. Ibis, which is very close to Ipis, which is, as many of you may know, cockroach in Tagalog. But that's another story. I wanted to just share a reflection on John and also Yulie, because what can you say about a guy like John McBeth that hasn't been said? But he was a remarkable guy, always a great friend, and somebody who, when I was a kind of nothing freelancer and was covering the Chunduan story in 1987 in Seoul, gave me lots of time and helped me understand and told me, that's a lot of bullshit. And that helped clear things up for me and made my files better, I think. But anyway, here's the story I want to tell. In about 2011, my daughter Mona, the love of my life, Mona Margareta Newman, who's now 15, Mona's mother had left us for some elusive butterfly that she was chasing. And so I became a single father at the age that time of 58. And you can imagine this was something of a shock to the system. But it worked out. But one of the reasons it worked out so well actually involves John and Yulie. At around the time that Mona's mother left us, maybe, I don't know the time, but around 6 months later maybe, John said, and Yulie concurred, look, if you and Mona ever want to get away to Bali, come to our villa. I was about to say flat, which would be completely wrong. Come to our villa. You can stay anytime. Just give us a couple of days' notice, and it would be our pleasure. And that turned out, I don't even know if Yulie knows this, the depth of a feeling this brings up in me, but that turned out to be something of a lifeline for me, because it meant that whenever Mona and I had a school holiday or a break or whatever, we had a place to go in Bali and a house to stay in, a beautiful house. Sometimes John and Yulie were there, sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they would say, oh, no, this is not a good time. That was okay. But we spent weeks and weeks there over a period of years and really got to feel like that house was kind of not a second home exactly, but a retreat. I got to feel like it was a retreat for us. And Mona and I had wonderful times in that house with Snoopy the dog, with the fish in the fish pond, with the various wildlife. There were some frogs, as I recall. There was the wonderful Noni, the maid, and it was a godsend for us, to be quite honest. And it showed what's important in the context of the memorial for John is it showed that John was a guy who played at being the gruff, rough, bare-knuckled hack, and he was, but he was also a guy with a heart of gold who did me a good turn when I was down, when I was really on the ropes, and I've never forgotten it. I've always appreciated it. Yuli, of course, concurred in all of this, and the two of them, they don't do soppy, soppy, huggy, new age nonsense, but both of them really offered us a refuge. And we deeply, both of us, both Mona and I, deeply appreciate it. She's sad to know that John is gone. I'm bereft and have been since I got the news. Yuli, I hope you're listening to this. My love and affection and great admiration go out to you. I'm going to try to not cry. And John, wherever you may be, I'm not silly enough to think that you're hearing these words, but John, you are one of a kind. And I count myself lucky to have known you and to have been your friend. And that's really all I wanted to say. I'm so sorry I can't be there. I can't be there because I'm in Korea. I had some stupid conference I had to attend. But I'm now living in Europe. Travel is a bit of a challenge. But John, you're in my heart. You're in my thoughts. You're in my memories. And you always will be. And Yuli, big hugs. I love you. Stay well, everybody. I'm sad to be posting this, but I'm also happy to remember one of the dearest friends and best journalists I've ever known. Thanks, everybody. Signing off from Seoul. Cheers.